My name is Victoria and I am 26 years old. Last Sunday evening, during what should have been a normal family dinner, my parents delivered an ultimatum that shattered everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. They demanded I give up my childhood bedroom to my cousin Marcus, who had just moved back to town after losing his job. When I hesitated, questioning why I should abandon the space I had carefully maintained and paid rent for during my graduate studies, my mother screamed those words that still echo in my mind. The choice they forced me to make that night would uncover a web of lies, financial betrayal, and family secrets that had been brewing for decades. Before we dive into this family revenge drama that will leave you questioning everything about blood loyalty, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from tonight? Are you someone who has ever felt like the outsider in your own family? Hit that like button if you have ever faced an impossible choice between your dignity and family peace. Subscribe because this story takes turns you will never see coming, and trust me, you will want to hear how karma finally caught up with everyone who thought they could manipulate me. The ultimatum came out of nowhere during Sunday dinner at my parents' house in suburban Denver. I had been living in my childhood bedroom on weekends while completing my master's degree in social work, paying them $300 monthly for the privilege. It seemed reasonable since I worked full-time at a nonprofit downtown during the week and stayed in a shared apartment closer to my job. Marcus had always been the golden child among the cousins. At 31, he possessed that effortless charm that made adults overlook his constant failures. He had dropped out of college twice, burned through several jobs, and had a habit of borrowing money he never repaid. Yet somehow he remained everyone's favorite. "Victoria, we need to talk," my mother, Patricia, announced as we sat down to her famous pot roast. My father, Robert, cleared his throat uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. "Marcus needs a place to stay while he gets back on his feet. Your room would be perfect for him." I set down my fork carefully. "Mom, I pay rent for that room. I have my things there, my books, my computer set up for school. Where exactly am I supposed to go?" "You have that apartment downtown," she replied dismissively. "You do not need two places. I need the quiet space to study. My roommates are loud and I have thesis work to finish. Besides, I have been paying for that room consistently for 2 years." Marcus leaned back in his chair with that familiar smirk. "Come on, Vic. It is just temporary. Family helps family, right?" That phrase sent ice through my veins. Family helps family. It was the same line they used when Marcus needed his car payment covered, when he required bail money after his DUI, when he wanted someone to co-sign his apartment lease that he inevitably defaulted on. "How temporary?" I asked. My parents exchanged glances. "Well, until he finds something stable," my father said vaguely. "That could be months. Years based on his track record." The table fell silent. Marcus's jaw tightened and I saw that flash of anger he always got when someone called out his patterns. "Victoria Elizabeth," my mother's voice turned sharp. "That is your family you are talking about. Marcus has had some bad luck, but he is working to turn things around." "Bad luck, Mom. He was fired from his last job for showing up drunk. Before that, he quit without notice because he did not like his supervisor. This is not bad luck. This is a pattern." "You always think you are better than everyone else," Marcus snapped. "Just because you went to college and have your little social worker job, you think you can judge me." I stared at him, genuinely shocked. "I am not judging you. I am pointing out facts. And my little social worker job is helping kids in foster care find stable homes. What exactly have you been contributing to society lately?" "That is enough," my father said firmly. "Marcus is family and he needs our help. You have options. He does not. He has options, he chooses not to take them. There is a difference." My mother stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Give up the room or get out of this house. Those are your choices, Victoria. We are tired of your selfishness." Selfishness. The word hit me like a physical blow. I had been the reliable one my entire life. I maintained good grades, worked part-time through college, never asked for money, and actually paid them rent when I could have just moved out completely. Meanwhile, Marcus had cost my parents thousands of dollars over the years in bailouts, loans, and financial support. "Fine," I said, quietly standing up from the table. "I choose to get out." As I gathered my purse and keys, I heard my mother call after me. "Do not be so dramatic, Victoria. Come back when you are ready to be reasonable." But something had shifted inside me during that dinner. For the first time, I saw clearly how they treated me versus Marcus. I was the responsible one who could handle herself, so I got demands and ultimatums. He was the screw-up who needed protection, so he got unconditional support. Driving back to my downtown apartment, I made a decision. I was going to find out exactly how much money my parents had given Marcus over the years, and I was going to discover why they were so willing to throw me out to accommodate him. What I found in the following days would reveal a financial conspiracy that went far beyond family favoritism. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Not because I was physically ill, but because I needed time to process what had happened and figure out my next steps. I spent the day calling moving companies and arranging to get my belongings from my parents' house while they were at work. By Tuesday, I had cleared out my childhood bedroom completely. I left the key on my father's desk with a note stating I was terminating my rental agreement immediately. No explanation, no drama, just a clean break. But something nagged at me about the whole situation. The urgency in my parents' voices, the way they looked at each other before delivering their ultimatum, Marcus's confident smirk like he already knew the outcome. It felt orchestrated. Wednesday evening, I decided to visit my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. Linda had always been the family gossip, but she was also surprisingly perceptive about family dynamics. If anyone knew what was really going on, it would be her. "Victoria, what a surprise," Linda said, inviting me into her cozy kitchen. "I heard about the drama at Sunday dinner. Your mother called me very upset about your reaction." "What exactly did she tell you?" Linda poured 2 cups of coffee and settled across from me at her small dinette table. "She said Marcus needed a place to stay, and you refused to help family. Said you threw a tantrum and stormed out." I recounted the actual events, watching Linda's expression change from neutral to concerned to outright angry. "That is not what she told me at all," Linda said slowly. "She made it sound like you were being selfish about sharing space, not that they were demanding you give up your paid room with no notice." "Linda, can I ask you something? Do you know how much money my parents have given Marcus over the years?" She was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "Honey, I probably should not be telling you this, but your parents have been supporting Marcus financially for years, and I mean significantly." My stomach dropped. "How significantly?" "Your mother mentioned they helped him with his security deposit for his last apartment. That was $2,000. Before that, they paid off his credit card debt, which was around $8,000. They have been covering his car payment for 6 months, which is $400 monthly, and they co-signed his car loan for a $25,000 truck." I did quick mental math. Just from what Linda mentioned, my parents had given Marcus over $15,000 in the past year alone, not counting the ongoing car payments they were covering. "Linda, that is more money than I have made in the past 2 years combined. Why are they doing this?" She looked uncomfortable. "Your mother says Marcus has had a hard time finding his place in the world. She feels guilty because his parents, your Uncle Mike and Aunt Janet, were always so strict with him growing up." "Strict how?" "They expected him to work for what he wanted, made him get a job at 16, required him to maintain good grades, to keep his car privileges, that sort of thing. Your mother thought they were too hard on him." I stared at my coffee pieces clicking together in my mind. So she has been trying to make up for his childhood by bailing him out of every adult consequence. It seems that way. And honestly, Victoria, I think your father goes along with it because it is easier than arguing with your mother. You know how she gets when she has made up her mind about something. I did know. My mother could be incredibly stubborn when she believed she was protecting someone she loved, but this was beyond protection. This was enabling on a massive scale. "There is something else," Linda said hesitantly. "Your mother mentioned that Marcus has been staying at their house for the past 2 weeks already. He lost his apartment when he got fired, and they have been letting him sleep on the couch. The room demand was because he complained about being uncomfortable." My blood ran cold. "He has been living there for 2 weeks, and they demanded I give up my room because he was uncomfortable on the couch. That is what it sounds like." I sat in Linda's kitchen, feeling like I was seeing my family clearly for the first time. My parents had not just chosen Marcus over me in that moment. They had been choosing him over me financially and emotionally for years, and I had been too focused on my own life to notice, but now I noticed. And I was going to find out exactly how deep this favoritism went. Linda, do you think there is more I do not know about? She was quiet for a long moment. Honey, your parents love you. But they have always treated Marcus like he was their own child, maybe even more than their own child. I have watched it for years, and it has never sat right with me. That night I started digging. I remembered my parents had asked me to house sit for them last Christmas while they visited my grandmother in Phoenix. During that week I had organized their home office as a surprise, filing away scattered papers and organizing their desk drawers. I remembered seeing bank statements and financial documents. At the time, I had not paid attention to the details, just sorted them into neat piles. But now I wondered what those documents might reveal about the extent of their financial support for Marcus. I needed to get back into that house and look at those records. And I had the perfect opportunity coming up. My opportunity came sooner than expected. Thursday morning, my mother called me at work, her voice strained and apologetic. Victoria, honey, I think we may have handled Sunday poorly. Your father and I would like to talk things through with you. Could you come over Saturday afternoon? Marcus will not be there. He is visiting friends. I agreed, though I had no intention of reconciliation. Instead, I planned to use the visit to gather evidence of exactly how my parents had been financially enabling Marcus, while treating me like an inconvenience. Saturday afternoon arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. My parents sat across from me in their living room, looking uncomfortable and rehearsed. Victoria, we want you to know that we love you very much, my mother began. We may have been too hasty in our approach about the room situation. Too hasty, I kept my voice level. You gave me an ultimatum to give up a room I pay rent for or get out of your house. With no notice and no discussion, my father shifted uncomfortably. We were trying to help family in a crisis. What crisis exactly? Because from what I understand, Marcus has been living here for 2 weeks already. How is that a sudden crisis? They exchanged that look again, the one I had noticed at dinner. Guilt, and something else I could not identify. He lost his job unexpectedly, my mother said defensively. These things happen. Mom, he was fired for showing up drunk. That is not unexpected. That is a consequence of his choices. We talked in circles for another 20 minutes with them, trying to convince me to be more understanding and me pointing out the unfairness of their expectations. Finally, I excused myself to use the bathroom, but instead of going upstairs, I slipped into my father's home office. Their filing system was exactly as I had left it after organizing it at Christmas. Financial documents sorted by year, bank statements in chronological order, tax documents in labeled folders. I quickly located their checking account statements from the past 2 years. What I found made my hands shake. The payments to Marcus were not just larger than Linda had indicated. They were systematic and ongoing. Monthly transfers of $800 to $1,200, labeled in my father's neat handwriting as M support or M expenses. Car payments of $437 every month for 18 months. Insurance payments for a policy I knew Marcus could not afford on his own. But it got worse. Much worse. I found loan documents for a $15,000 personal loan my parents had taken out 8 months ago. The purpose written in my mother's handwriting: Marcus business investment. I had never heard anything about Marcus starting a business. There was more. Credit card statements showing charges for Marcus's expenses, grocery bills, gas purchases, even entertainment expenses charged to my parents' cards and marked with an M in the memo section. Over the past 2 years, my parents had given Marcus over $60,000 in direct support loans and covered expenses. $60,000. For perspective, that was more than my annual salary at the nonprofit. It was more than my father made in a year before his recent promotion. They had been sacrificing their own financial stability to support Marcus's irresponsible lifestyle. But the document that made my blood boil was tucked behind the bank statements. It was a handwritten note from my mother to my father dated 3 months ago. Robert Marcus asked if we could help him with his security deposit for a new apartment. He found a place for $1,500 per month, needs first, last, and deposit. That is $4,500. I know money is tight since we helped him with the car and the business loan, but I keep thinking about how much Victoria has always had things easy. Good grades, scholarships, stable job. Marcus has struggled so much. Maybe we could ask Victoria to help cover some of the deposit. Family should help family. I photographed every relevant document with my phone, my hands trembling with rage. They had not just been giving Marcus money, they had been considering asking me to contribute to his expenses while hiding from me how much they were already providing. When I returned to the living room, my parents were deep in quiet conversation that stopped abruptly when they saw me. "Feel better?" my mother asked with forced brightness. "Much," I said truthfully. "I think I have a much clearer picture of the family situation now." Something in my tone made my father look nervous. "Victoria, what do you mean?" I sat down across from them and pulled out my phone. "I mean, I now understand that over the past 2 years, you have given Marcus over $60,000 in direct support loans and covered expenses. I understand that you took out a $15,000 personal loan for his supposed business venture. I understand that you have been covering his $400 monthly car payment for 18 months. And I understand that you actually considered asking me to contribute to his housing expenses while hiding all of this from me." The color drained from both of their faces. "Victoria, how do you—" my father started. "How do I know? Because I just spent 20 minutes in your office, looking at bank statements and loan documents. The same office where you asked me to organize your financial papers last Christmas, remember?" My mother's face flushed red. "You went through our private financial information. That is a violation of our privacy." "Privacy? You mean like the privacy I lost when you discussed my living situation with Marcus before talking to me, or the privacy I lost when you made family financial decisions that directly affected me without involving me in any discussion?" I stood up, energy coursing through me. "Here is what is going to happen. I am going to give you one opportunity to explain why you thought it was acceptable to give Marcus the equivalent of my 2 year salary while demanding I sacrifice my living situation for his comfort. And your explanation, better be honest, because I have documentation of everything." The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unspoken resentment and favoritism finally brought into the light. My father finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "We never meant for it to get this complicated." "Complicated, Dad? You have been running a secret welfare program for Marcus while treating me like I am the problem child for questioning why he deserves special treatment." "It is not like that," my mother protested. "Marcus has had a harder life than you. He needed more help." "Harder life, Mom. I worked 3 jobs to pay for college. I have been financially independent since I was 22. I have never asked you for money, never expected you to bail me out of my mistakes, never demanded you accommodate my poor choices. But Marcus has cost you $60,000 in 2 years, and somehow I am the selfish one for wanting to keep the room I pay rent for." "You do not understand," my mother said, tears forming in her eyes. "Marcus is—" She stopped herself, but something in her expression told me there was more to this story. Something bigger than simple favoritism. "Marcus is what—" Mom finished that sentence. The look she exchanged with my father contained decades of shared secrets, and I was about to uncover the biggest one of all. My mother's unfinished sentence hung in the air like a loaded weapon. The way she and my father looked at each other told me I was about to learn something that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. "Marcus is what—" "Mom," I repeated, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she opened them again I saw resignation there. "Marcus is your father's son." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward, needing to steady myself against the wall. "What did you just say?" My father's face had gone completely pale. "Victoria, we never intended for you to find out this way." "Find out what way?" "Find out that my father cheated on my mother. Find out that Marcus is my half-brother. Find out that you have been lying to me my entire life." "It is not that simple," my mother said quickly. "It happened before you were born. Your father and I were separated for 6 months when we were young. He had a relationship with Janet, Mike's wife. When they got back together, Janet was already pregnant." I stared at them, trying to process the magnitude of this revelation. So, Uncle Mike has been raising Dad's biological son this whole time. Mike does not know, my father said quietly. Janet never told him. She married Mike when Marcus was 6 months old and Mike adopted him legally. As far as Mike knows, Marcus is his son, but you have always known. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. That is why you have been giving him all this money. That is why you kicked me out of my room for him. That is why he has always been the favorite. He is not the favorite, my mother protested, but even she did not sound convinced. Mom, you have given him $60,000 in 2 years while asking me to give up my paid living space for his comfort. How is that not favoritism? We felt guilty, my father admitted. Janet and Mike raised him, but he is my biological son. When he started struggling as an adult, I felt responsible. Like maybe if he had grown up with his real father, things would have been different. So, you decided to parent him financially without actually parenting him at all. You gave him money instead of guidance, bailouts instead of boundaries, and enabled every irresponsible choice he made. And you did all of this while lying to me, to Mike, to Janet, and probably to Marcus himself. Marcus does not know, my mother said. We thought it would be cruel to tell him when Mike has been such a good father. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Cruel to tell him, but not cruel to lie to everyone else. Not cruel to financially drain yourselves supporting him while treating your actual daughter like she is asking for too much when she wants basic respect. I paced the living room, my mind racing through 26 years of family interactions with this new context. Every holiday where Marcus got the expensive gifts while I got practical ones. Every family gathering where his achievements were celebrated while mine were minimized. Every time my parents made excuses for his behavior while holding me to impossible standards. Does Janet know? I asked. We think she suspects, my father said, but she has never said anything directly. And you have all just been living this lie for 31 years. It seemed like the best way to handle a complicated situation, my mother said defensively. The best way, Mom? You have been embezzling money from your own household to support the son Dad abandoned while treating your actual daughter like a second-class citizen? How is that the best way to handle anything? I pulled out my phone and started typing. What are you doing? My father asked nervously. I am texting Uncle Mike and Aunt Janet. I am asking them to meet me for coffee tomorrow morning, because this family has lived with enough lies. Victoria, you cannot, my mother said frantically. It will destroy their marriage. It will destroy Marcus. It will destroy everything. Everything is already destroyed, Mom. You destroyed it the moment you decided to build your family relationships on lies and financial manipulation. My father stood up, his face desperate. Please, Victoria. Think about what you are doing. This will hurt innocent people. Innocent people. Dad, Mike has been unknowingly raising your son while you secretly funded that son's entire adult life behind his back. Janet has been living a lie for 3 decades. Marcus has been manipulating all of you without even knowing he had biological family guilt working in his favor. And I have been treated like the problem child in my own family because you felt guilty about abandoning your biological son. Who exactly is innocent here? We were trying to do the right thing, my mother pleaded. The right thing would have been honesty 31 years ago. The right thing would have been letting Mike and Janet decide how to handle the truth. The right thing would have been treating all the children in this family equally, instead of secretly favoring the one you felt guilty about. I looked at both of them, these people who had raised me but apparently never really saw me as their priority. I am going to give you one chance to tell Mike and Janet the truth yourselves. You have until Sunday evening. If you do not tell them by then, I will. And if we refuse, my father asked, then you will find out what it feels like when someone you love chooses other people over you. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Dad, I want every penny of that $60,000 you gave Marcus returned to your accounts. Because you are going to need it for the family therapy you are all going to require and for the financial support you are going to owe Mike and Janet when their world falls apart because of your lies. As I drove home, I felt something I had not experienced in years when it came to my family: complete clarity. I was done being the responsible one who absorbed everyone else's dysfunction. I was done being treated as less important than the son my father had abandoned and then secretly overcompensated. It was time for the truth to surface and for everyone to face the consequences of 3 decades of deception. Sunday evening came faster than I expected. I had spent the weekend preparing myself for what was about to happen, knowing that I was about to detonate a truth bomb that would reshape our entire family permanently. At exactly 6 o'clock, I received a text from my mother. "Please come over. We need to talk before you do anything irreversible." I arrived to find not just my parents but Marcus himself, sitting in their living room. He looked confused and slightly annoyed, like he had been dragged into something he did not understand. "Victoria," my mother said as I entered, "we have been thinking about what you said. Maybe there is another way to handle this situation. The only other way is complete honesty. Have you told Marcus and Uncle Mike the truth?" Marcus looked between us with growing alarm. "What truth? What is everyone talking about?" I looked at my father. "Are you going to tell him, or should I?" My father's hands were shaking. "Marcus, there is something about your parentage that you need to know." For the next 20 minutes I watched Marcus's world fall apart as my parents explained the truth about his biological father. His face went through shock, denial, anger, and finally a cold understanding that made my stomach clench. "So you are telling me," Marcus said slowly, "that Robert is my biological father, and you have both known this my entire life?" "Yes," my father said quietly. "And Mike, the man who raised me, who taught me to drive, who walked me through my first heartbreak, who has been calling himself my father for 30 years, is not actually related to me at all, biologically, no. But Marcus, he loves you just the same," my mother said desperately. Marcus stood up and started pacing, his movements sharp and agitated. "And the money, all the money you have been giving me, that was guilt money because you abandoned me as a baby." "It was not abandonment," my father protested. "I did not even know Janet was pregnant when she married Mike." "But you knew afterwards. You knew, and you let another man raise your son while you played fun uncle and secret benefactor." Marcus turned to me suddenly. "And you? You knew about this." "How long? I found out yesterday," I said truthfully. "I discovered the financial records first, then confronted them about the favoritism." "Financial records?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I had taken. $60,000 in 2 years, Marcus. They have been giving you the equivalent of a full-time salary while treating me like I was asking for too much when I wanted to keep the room I pay rent for. Marcus scrolled through the images, his face growing darker with each document. "You documented all of this, every payment, every loan, every covered expense." He looked up at my parents with something I had never seen in his expression before: cold calculation. "So, let me understand this completely. You have been lying to everyone in both families for 3 decades. You have been financially supporting me with money you could not afford while treating Victoria like garbage. You have been letting Mike and Janet live a lie. And now you want to find some way to continue this dysfunction because the truth is inconvenient." "Marcus, we love you," my mother said desperately. "We were trying to do what was best for everyone." "What was best for everyone, Mom? You have been stealing from your own household to give me money I never even asked for. You have been treating your actual daughter like a second-class citizen to make up for Dad's guilty conscience. You have been lying to Uncle Mike and Aunt Janet for my entire life. How is any of that what was best for anyone?" I stared at Marcus, surprised by his reaction. I had expected him to be defensive about the financial support, to make excuses for accepting the money. Instead, he seemed genuinely angry about being lied to and manipulated. "There is more," Marcus continued, his voice getting harder. "I called Janet yesterday after you texted me about this family meeting. I asked her directly if there was anything about my parentage I should know." My parents' faces went white. She told me the truth. She has known for years that Robert was my biological father. She has been waiting for 31 years for him to take responsibility for it. She married Mike because Robert disappeared when she told him she was pregnant, and Mike stepped up to be the father I needed. The silence in the room was deafening. "She has been watching you both give me money for years, knowing it was guilt payments for the son you abandoned. She has been watching Mike work extra hours to support our family while you secretly funded my irresponsible lifestyle with money that rightfully belonged to Victoria's future." Marcus turned to me. "Victoria, I owe you an apology. Not just for taking your room but for accepting money that was stolen from your relationship with your parents. I did not know where it was coming from, but I should have questioned why they were always so willing to bail me out when Mike and Janet taught me to work for what I wanted." I felt something shift inside me, a small crack in the wall of resentment I had built against Marcus over the years. "Marcus, you did not know. They lied to all of us, but I did know something was off. I knew they treated you differently than they treated me. I chose to benefit from that instead of questioning it. He turned back to our parents. Just like I chose to accept money I had not earned instead of learning to support myself. My mother was crying openly now. We were trying to protect everyone. Protect everyone, or protect yourselves from facing the consequences of 31 years of lies, Marcus asked. He pulled out his own phone. I called Mike this morning and told him everything. He is driving here now with Janet. They should arrive any minute. As if summoned by his words, we heard cars pulling into the driveway. The reckoning had arrived and there was no stopping it now. Mike and Janet entered my parents' house with expressions I had never seen before. Mike looked like a man who had been betrayed by everyone he trusted, while Janet carried herself with the rigid composure of someone who had finally decided to stop protecting other people's feelings at the expense of her own. Truth. 31 years, Mike said without preamble, looking directly at my father. 31 years I have been raising your son while you played secret benefactor behind my back. Mike, I can explain, my father started. Explain how you got my wife pregnant and then disappeared, how you let me adopt and raise Marcus while you secretly funded his lifestyle as an adult, how you watched me work double shifts to support my family while you gave my son more money in 2 years than I make in a year, Janet spoke for the first time, her voice eerily calm. Robert, I have been waiting 3 decades for you to take responsibility for your choices. When you left town after I told you I was pregnant, I thought you were just young and scared. When you came back and pretended nothing had happened, I thought maybe you needed time. When you started giving Marcus money as an adult, I thought finally you were stepping up as his biological father. I was trying to help, my father said, weakly. Help. You were trying to ease your guilt without facing the consequences of your actions. There is a difference. Marcus stepped forward. Mike, I want you to know that I consider you my real father in every way that matters. Robert may share my DNA, but you taught me everything important about being a man. I am sorry I lost sight of those lessons when the easy money started coming. Mike's rigid expression softened slightly. Son, none of this is your fault. You did not know the truth. But I did know something was wrong. I knew Robert and Patricia treated me differently than Victoria, and I took advantage of it instead of questioning it. I let myself become entitled and irresponsible because I knew they would always bail me out. Marcus turned to my parents. That stops today. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a repayment plan for every dollar you have given me in the past 2 years. I am getting a job, a real job, and I am paying back every penny with interest. No more bailouts, no more special treatment, no more lies. Janet looked at my mother. Patricia, I need you to understand something. I do not blame you for Robert's choices before you were married, but I do blame you for enabling this dysfunction for decades while treating your own daughter like she was less important than the son you felt guilty about. My mother flinched as if she had been slapped. Victoria has been the responsible one her entire life, Janet continued. She worked her way through school, maintained good grades, built a career helping children, and never asked you for anything. Meanwhile, you have been throwing money at Marcus to ease Robert's guilty conscience and treating her like she was asking for too much when she wanted basic respect. Janet turned to me. Victoria, I owe you an apology too. I have watched this favoritism for years and said nothing because I was protecting my own family secret. I should have spoken up for you. Mike nodded grimly. We all failed you, Victoria, but it ends now. Over the next 2 hours we had the most honest family conversation of my life. Mike and Janet decided to separate temporarily while they worked through 3 decades of built-up resentment and lies. Marcus moved out of my parents' house immediately and into a studio apartment he could actually afford on his own. My parents agreed to family therapy and complete financial transparency, but the most important change was in how I was treated. For the first time in my life, I was not the one expected to be understanding, accommodating, and flexible, while everyone else got special consideration. Victoria, my father said as the evening wound down, I know we can never undo the damage we have caused. But I want you to know that I am proud of the woman you have become, and I am sorry it took this crisis for me to realize how badly we have failed you as parents. 6 months later, our family looks completely different. Mike and Janet are working through their issues in counseling and have decided to stay together. Marcus has kept his job and stuck to his repayment plan, showing up as a responsible adult for the first time in his life. My parents are still paying for their deceptions financially and emotionally, but they are finally treating me as an equal member of the family instead of the reliable one who could handle being overlooked. The most surprising development has been my relationship with Marcus. Without the toxic dynamic of secret favoritism and financial enabling, we have actually become friends. Real friends who call each other out when necessary and support each other through challenges. I learned that standing up for yourself does not make you selfish, it makes you healthy. I learned that family loyalty should never come at the expense of truth and fairness. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is refuse to participate in their dysfunction. Looking back, I am grateful for that Sunday dinner ultimatum. It forced me to choose between my dignity and family peace, and I chose correctly. Sometimes the people who love you need to face the consequences of their choices before they can learn to treat you with the respect you deserve. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself in your own family? Have you watched favoritism destroy family relationships while everyone pretended it was not happening? I want to hear your stories in the Tenrao comments below, because family karma is real, and justice does eventually find its way to the surface. Hit that like button if you believe that truth always wins in the end, even when it takes 31 years to surface. Subscribe for more stories about standing up to family manipulation and finding your voice when everyone expects you to stay silent. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they deserve equal treatment in their own family, regardless of guilt, favoritism, or decades-old secrets. Thank you for watching my story and for supporting others who refuse to accept less than they deserve. Remember that your peace of mind is worth more than anyone else's comfort, and family relationships built on lies will eventually crumble under the weight of their own deception. The truth might be painful, but it is the only foundation strong enough to build genuine love and respect upon.